Some more great information. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
With nutrition.
That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
You can't stop me.
I'm going to win.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
I won't quit.
I just keep getting stronger.
But first, you gotta get speed. Demon speed. Speed's what we need. We need greasy, fast speed.
The Train Right Podcast.
This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
For personal trainers, health practitioners, and athletes, this is the place for interviews with the best of the industry and great conversations about performance. With your host, Phil.
Hi folks, and welcome to this third episode of the Train Right Podcast, where we pick the brain of industry leader in the strength and conditioning field to help you fast track your learning and improve your business. Today we're going to talk about nutrition. I had the pleasure to interview Mr. Josh Rubin from EastWest Healing. I met Josh a couple of years back when I was studying the Czech principles with him in HLC2 down in California. Josh has a very interesting view on sugar that opens a whole new perspective on how we should be eating for optimal health and performance. We had a little trouble with the recording sound, but the information was so great that I thought I'm going to post it anyway. So, without further ado, enjoy Mr. Josh Rubin. Hi Josh, welcome to the show and thanks for accepting my invitation.
How's it going?
It's going great, thank you. So my first question to you, Josh, is how did you go from being a Czech faculty member and teaching this way to being such a big proponent of metabolism and thyroid?
So I, done a lot in the past. As I got a little older, I kind of, through teaching realized that the more you have, the less you can actually do, because most people you work with are, kind of beginner and they need the elemental stuff that most people don't want to use because they want to learn all the cool stuff. So I stopped taking a lot of certifications and courses. I was still in school though, of course. I couldn't let my ego go completely. But, I really focused on nutrition because I felt like, as I was going through a lot of my schooling and as I went through the Czech Institute stuff and started my business, I just felt like it was something I was passionate about and really resonated with me. And I understood it pretty easily. That's what I thought. And it just kind of happened, to be honest with you, where I was posting on forums and writing blogs. I was starting my business. I just started to do YouTubes and share everything I was just reading because I loved to read. And I started to get a lot of clients people asking me questions. And I just started to do just consults with them, so I could answer their questions. And it just grew. The Facebook grew, the social media grew, our outreach grew, and, kind of in that process met my wife, so we grew even more, and, that's just kind of how it happened. It was really, it just happened,
Your wife is working with you, right?
Yeah, she has we do the same thing. She just has her clients, I have my clients, and, we work via phone or Skype with clients all over the world. People come to us for many reasons, through many avenues, but I focus on the nutrition mainly because it happened, but because we felt like everyone was focusing on, certain pieces to the puzzle to heal, whether it's emotional or physical. And when it came to nutritional, all they were doing is following principles. Like, eat this food, you will heal, I don't want to name any diets, but at the time I was studying a certain type of diet. It was like, if your body is this type, eat these foods, you will heal. I wish it was that easy in this day and age, and it's not, in my opinion. You know, and the more I started to study these different diets, I just felt like they were very cookie cutter, and none of them were really looking at the body from a functional standpoint. They were looking at the body from a dysfunctional standpoint, like you have a gut problem or a fungal problem, is your fungal diet, you know, and that just doesn't work for me at all. It goes against, like, the order of how the body works, in my opinion. And then they're looking at the outcome. Like, you want to increase performance? Okay, well, you need this many calories and this many that, and that doesn't work for me as well, because both processes take out the person. They don't even look at the person, who they are, and what's the relationship with this person, their life, the world, what they have been doing. You know, so it kind of led me on a... Yeah, it really led me on a path to say I want to really study nutrition so I can work with the individual and bring the individual back into the picture.
Cool. So if you were to just, for people that don't know your work, if you were just to summarize like the basics and how it differs from everything else that we've probably seen before, how would you describe all that?
I mean, the easiest way is it's nutrition based on human physiology. You know, some people say no, it's not, of course, but for us, it's like if you understand physiology, it makes perfect sense. If you don't, of course, you're going to argue it. I know it's a harsh statement, but, you know, and most of the time we see the world through our experiences and our beliefs and what we read. So a lot of people can't let go of that. And it challenges not only their belief systems, but their business model. So they can't let go of it. But when we look at things, we look at how the body works and function. We've studied it, gut, hormone, everything, and it's all connected, you know. And from our standpoint, we look at the body as a conglomeration of cells, because that's what we are.
Yeah.
That's how we actually are brought into this world, and we multiply. And the cells in your body are the conductors of every system because they're all in your tissues. So if we can get your cells working properly, we get the systems working properly, we get the person feeling better, doing whatever they need to do. So from us, it's an inside-out approach. Everyone else, in my opinion, is doing an outside-in approach. You know, all these different diets, or increasing performance, or you're this height and this weight, seeing that this many calories. You know, they're not taking into account the person's history, what they've been through, where they're at, what they can handle, their metabolism. You know, because if you're saying someone needs 1,800 calories, but what if you just say, can you log your food for a week so I can see what you eat? And they're eating 900 calories, you can't just double the amount of calories. They're not going to be able to even handle it emotionally, and then physiologically their body can't handle it. So you're actually creating more stress. You're not actually helping them. You know, so from our standpoint, we like to build the body up, look at where someone's at, get a baseline, and then build them up to that point. And we build them up to a point based on not what will we think. We build them up to a point based on what the body thinks. It's kind of like, you know, I study osteopathy, based on the old school osteopathy, or I should say true osteopathy. You know, you go to Canada, you go to any other country other than the U.S., you have true osteopathy. And osteopathy, it's about listening to the body. You're actually you're not the practitioner. You're actually the body's the teacher, and you're the student. So when you're treating someone and you put your hands on them, if you know how the body works and function, and you could listen to the body tells you exactly what to do. It tells you what, you know, kind of techniques need to be done, etc. Versus going in and saying, you have a knee problem, these are the techniques I'm going to use. Hopefully that makes sense. So our nutrition program is kind of based on that philosophy, listening to the body. And we use different feedback, right? We use feedback, which is pretty crazy, right? We listen to our clients. And the feedback is, you know, how are they feeling? What's going through? How do they feel after eating food? What's working? What's not working? You know, what's their body temperature and pulse? So we use qualitative and quantitative. So to us, it's an inside-out approach versus the outside-in approach. And, you know, that's, in a nutshell, kind of what we do. It's really nutrition based on human physiology, and we're really teaching people to use nutrition as their supplement to regulate thyroid health. It's a lot technical than that, but we use the word thyroid because most people can grasp what a thyroid is. But if I said we use food as your supplement to regulate your blood sugar and increase glycogen storage, your body can increase the conversion of thyroid hormone and use it at the cell level to increase ATP production to put you in a more homeostatic state. Most people go, I want to do paleo. I don't understand what you're talking about.
I'll go with that. I can understand.
Yeah, so we use it in more simplistic sense in language that people go, oh, okay, yeah, I have thyroid problems, or as most people say, which, I get, and I'm not talking bad, but I have thyroid problems, and they don't even have thyroid problems. They just think they do because they've been studying on Google University, So it's most people think they do, and they really don't, but they can grasp that, so that's why we use that term.
So do you apply the same, it's the same philosophy, but how would it differ if, let's say, your client is an international level athlete compared to just a random guy that comes and just want to feel healthier? Would you do the exact same thing, or would things change depending on who's there in front of you?
Yes and no. And that's the hard part for people to grasp. And I'll have to be honest, is we've struggled over the years really getting people to understand our philosophy. When people get it, it's like, boom, they get it. And the results are fantastic. As with most people, but, our philosophy is the same for everyone. But how we do it with everyone is slightly different because everyone is different, right? Everyone comes to us with a different baseline, different needs, different history, right? And the philosophy is the same when it comes to what foods people need, how we're going to have them, log and use body temperature and pulse, how we're going to have them tune into themselves. The philosophy we use of blood sugar regulation or unsaturated fats, or, the foods we use and what we use them are all the same, but how it's used and how the process goes is completely different, right? Because athletes have different needs than the average Joe, but the average Joe, in my opinion, is an athlete. If you think of most people's days nowadays, you have kids and you work, that's like a marathon every day. And when you're emotionally stressed and you're drained, or you have to do a bunch of 400 repeats, the stress is exactly the same. Stress is stress is stress. The body doesn't go, oh, this stress is because she didn't get enough sleep, so I'm going to release completely different hormones. Oh, these are 400-meter repeats stress, so I'm going to release completely different hormones. No, the body reacts the same way. You don't meet the body's demands energy-wise, the body releases the exact same hormones. And most people, whether it's Jeanne or, an elite-level runner or athlete or hockey player, most people, in my opinion, are not taking in enough energy to meet the demands of the energy that they're expending. And this is why people have sleep problems. This is why people have trouble losing weight, or have people trouble gaining weight, or people have hormonal problems, or erectile dysfunction problems, or high cholesterol, And with athletes, it's even worse. I worked with athletes. I don't too much anymore. I shouldn't say that. I do, but not as much as my average Joes, because most athletes want, results yesterday.
They're not ready to wait.
They just want
to get even better results. They want results now.
Yeah, and that's hard for me because I want to teach people something. I want to empower people. I want to let people understand that they have the choice to change their life, and they can do it with food. Of course, other things have to happen, but I'm not saying food's going to part the seas and you're going to it's going to be utopia, but it's an important piece of the puzzle. But I want to empower people, and I want to teach people over a 3 to 6 month process, how to use food to really create a foundation, because to us, it's the foundation for everything. I don't care if you have cancer, whether you have a cold, whether you have a hormone imbalance, or you play hockey. Food is the foundation for everything, for anything to work. You're human. You need food, water, air, and shelter. Well, you don't even really need it to survive, but you need food, air, and water to survive. And if you don't get food, what happens? You'll still be alive, but what happens? You're going to break down, and everything is going to struggle and suffer. So, and there's those people we know that don't eat a lot, and they're, incredible people. Well, let's interview those people in another 20, 30 years. We'll see how they're doing.
So if I just summarize it a little bit, like life is an accumulation of all types of different stress, and all stress reacts on your hormonal level and on your body, whether it's any types of stress. And if we go back to when you were saying thyroid is probably the main thing, thyroid is probably the basic anti-stress hormone. So it kind of rebalances. You're trying to rebalance all those stress by improving people's thyroid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but you're kind of on the right track. So it's not even the thyroid, it's the conversion of thyroid. So it depends who you read. Could be 80, could be 85, some people say 90. But most of your peripheral conversion of thyroid hormone happens in the liver. Yeah. Right? Some people know that, some people don't. So a lot of people think your liver is just a detox organ, right? A lot of people look at the body with binoculars on. We don't, because we know that the liver stores a lot of minerals. There's a reason for that. We know that the liver stores glycogen. It's your energy bank account. There's a reason for that. We know your liver detoxifies hormones. It detoxifies, your body, right? It's a detox organ, among other things. But when you convert thyroid hormone in the liver, there's different enzymes, deodorinase enzymes, that require certain minerals as well as glucose to make that conversion. You don't have those, you do not convert T4 to T3. There's a problem with that, because if you don't have thyroid hormone to use at the cellular level, of course your cells use minerals, your cells use oxygen, and more importantly, your cells use glucose and they use thyroid hormone, taking us back to like high school or college, to produce ATP, CO2, and water. And that's basically putting us in a metabolic, energy-producing, homeostatic state. Not a perfect state, because we're going to wax and wane, but we know that when we're in this state, things are going to work naturally. It's like in the 1800s when Andrew Taylor Still, godfather of osteopathy, said, if you give the body what it needs, nature will do the rest. Right? So to us, what's crazy about our philosophy is it happens so naturally, and it aligns exactly with what osteopathic thinking is. And my wife does biodynamic craniosacral, which is incredible, and it has the same thought process, right? So they kind of go hand in hand. If you give the body what it needs, nature will do the rest. If you give the body shellfish and whitefish and tropical fruits, right, and different roots and other, metabolic foods, these foods include exactly what the body needs, so the body can do what it's designed to do. Store glycogen and minerals. I'm giving you one example, of course. Store glycogen and minerals so that organ can use these very minerals and convert thyroid hormones so your cells can produce energy, which puts us in a more resilient state. Right? But as we get... Go ahead.
I said, so you're building your liver, per se, in this example, to be able to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, if you can't store glycogen, you can't convert thyroid hormones. So that's why we say using food as your supplement, because in the beginning, when you're using the foods and you're creating food frequency when you work with us and establishing that, it's like putting kindling or wood in a fire every 2 to 3 to 4 hours. That keeps the fire going. That's your metabolism. But
so when you work with your clients like that, to be able to monitor the frequency and everything, you use pulse and temperature a lot?
We use other feedback mechanisms, but temperature and pulse are one of them, because that shows us the body doesn't lie. So it doesn't matter what they feel or what we say. It shows us, are you storing glycogen? Are you regulating your blood sugar? Are you converting thyroid hormone? Are you using thyroid hormone at the cell level in glucose, etc.? And are you producing ATP and CO2 in water? And if you are, we'll see over time an increase in a balance in temperature and pulse. But most people say, oh, I ate the healthiest diet in the world, or I'm a pro athlete, so I'm healthy, I'm cool. Well, take your temperature in the morning. Because if your temperature is below 97.8, or I think it's 36.5 Celsius, then what you're doing, how you're eating, and how you're living is not really working for your body. And it doesn't matter how you feel, because down the line, something's going to happen. Whether you have crazy symptoms or, the stages of disease, or you end up with some type of disease, So it's important to meet your needs because, you can, I don't want to say prevent aging, but you can be a lot healthier and be more resilient and be, like you said, you'll be able to handle stress at a physiological level in a much better way.
And you talked about pulse also in the morning. I know you guys recommend not a higher pulse, but a higher pulse than what usually people are wanting to see in the morning. Like athletes usually want to see like super low pulse, and then they think they're in the best shape of their life. I think you guys have a little different view on that.
Yeah, really different view. Most people want a lower temperature because they want to be like Lance Armstrong, right? Everyone always says that, all my clients, but for us, we want people anywhere between if I can get people in the 70s, 75 to 85, no more than 85, because anything over 85 is hyperadrenaline. And that means you're not meeting your metabolic needs, and you're kind of in a more stress state than the average Joe that has a 40. That means you're releasing excess adrenaline and cortisol in the morning because you haven't regulated your blood sugar the day prior, or you didn't regulate the stressors physiologically by what you ate and how you lived your day, or even how you slept. So for us, most people with low temperatures are basically, I don't want to use the word hypothyroid because, most people we work with don't have hypothyroidism even when they say they do, or they're diagnosed with it. What they have is functional hypothyroidism. So I like using the word hypometabolic. And you don't want to be in that place, and if you're waking up and your temp and your pulse are actually low, that means you're hypometabolic. Your metabolism is slow. Things are not working appropriately. And the problem is everyone's doing these studies on people and saying, well, if they have lower pulse, then they're whatever. I don't know the technical terminology for this. What is it, like their VO2 max, whatever, their endurance is better, but they're not looking at anything else. They're not looking at people's nutrition. They're not looking at thyroid hormone production. They're not looking at energy production, etc. And I guarantee if we research that, it'd be in the bucket.
Right. So it's like looking at everything on an individual basis instead of looking at the body as a whole system that function together. Right.
And it's the great thing about the challenges, most athletes the reason they're athletes is because they're great compensators.
Okay, that's interesting.
Not saying they don't have a great skill level. I'm not saying that, but the reason they can have a low body temperature and pulse, and play hockey and then go party all night and, do what they do and hardly eat, or maybe they do, is because they're great compensators, But you know as well as I do that you talk to someone and they say, well, yeah, I just want to get better at my sport and feel better and recover better. But then when you start asking them questions and you really dive in, you start to really hear the true story. You just, do you have any other issues? No. So then when you get the health history back, it's like, I have high cholesterol, I don't sleep through the night, I eat 1 meal a day, yada, yada, yada. They have 100 other problems, So from us, It's about getting people healthy, with food. Because if we can do that, it's the foundation. And if you're feeling better, you're going to perform better. It's that simple, right? And our goal is not to just give someone food or supplements just so their lab results look good. That doesn't work for us. That takes the person out of the equation. There's a lot of people that don't feel good that have perfect labs, and there's a lot of people that feel horrible. And I just said the same thing. There's a lot of people that feel horrible and have perfect labs, and a lot of people that feel perfect and have horrible labs. So for me, getting a perfect reading on a lab just means you have a great supplement protocol. For us, we want to take it even a step further and actually heal the body. So if you go off those supplements, you'll actually still have a good lab, because we're healing you at a cellular physiological level.
So you want to have that super good base to be able to build on, whether it's an athlete or an average Joe. If you don't have that, all the supplements are just patches that you're using for now, but as soon as you stop, nothing else will work.
Right. For example, most people that take thyroid medication, what do they say to me when I talk to them? They go, it doesn't work. I've been taking it for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Well, it's not working, number one, because you don't need it, and you're creating more of a problem at the cell level. You're creating like a thyroid resistance because you don't really need it. Most people with true hypothyroidism will wake up with a really low temperature and pulse, like 95, 96 degrees, and no matter how they eat and how they live during the day and how long they live and eat perfectly, it will not change. That's like a true thyroid issue. You can't have a thyroid problem and wake up with a good pulse and temp or a low pulse and temp, and then you eat or do something and it goes up. That's just blood sugar. That's all it is, Yeah. And people taking thyroid meds, it doesn't work because their nutrition isn't in order. They're not storing glucose to help with that conversion. And they're eating and living in a way that's building up so much interference, like estrogen recirculation or whatever it may be, and mineral deficiencies that don't even allow the medication to work, that when we remove the interference, which is how they're living and eating, and support that with better food and better, living principles, the medication actually starts to work, and then over time, in a short amount of time, that can actually go off it, because what happens is they start to see how it's not working with, they can't sleep, or their heart's racing, or their hair is falling out worse. Because now they're supporting their system with food, and it's pushing them, to kind of, I don't want to use the word too metabolic, but if you put too much in the system, it's like if you take testosterone, you got to shut down your system over time. Same thing with thyroid.
Yeah, I lost you. You still there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry. Went out for a second.
So food for us is the foundation for everything. Supplements, doesn't matter. You need it in order for your medications to work. And in my opinion, you need it even for your supplements to work from a gut perspective, Most people that are hypometabolic have a slowed down GI system. If your body's in a stress state and you're running from a lion, as textbooks likes to say, you're not thinking about going to the bathroom, digesting food, or having sex. That's why most people have digestive problems.
Yeah.
They have hormonal problems and other issues, So if we get the cells working properly and we get you in a better state, now you're going to be able to break down food better and absorb your supplements even more, right? Because when you're stressed, you're not even releasing digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid. All these people taking hydrochloric acid, it's doing nothing, is because, the body's not working appropriately. And if you just took the time to eat in a better way to support your system and live in a different way, you'd actually get your body, right? Nature will do the rest. You get your body to upregulating hydrochloric acid again.
Very interesting. So, what's your take on estrogen? Can it has an impact on all that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, most people, if you study the work of Dr. John Lee, MD, he kind of was the first to discover the whole quote-unquote estrogen dominance thing that everyone likes to use so loosely. You know, and I don't know if you do this, but it's huge in the sports industry with you know, trainers. It's, you know, someone has excess fat or certain symptoms, they're estrogen dominant, right? And what do? They put them on DIM. They put them on calcium D-glucarate, you know, which, you know, one basically helps the body. I think calcium D-glucarate actually helps the body get rid of estrogen, but it can also eliminate the body of testosterone at the same time. So it's not the best supplement.
Helping on one side, but
yeah,
yourself up on the other.
Right, and then DIM, I think it basically, I forget what DIM does, but I think it affects the receptor sites, but once you stop taking it, it really is not going to do anything. It only works when you're taking it, I think. I forget the exact chemistry behind it. I don't use them. You know, if anything, you want to take an aromatase enzyme. But more importantly, the most important thing is with estrogen is, you know, and this is in men and women, most people with estrogen dominant, from what I've seen in studying, you know, Dr. Lee's work and, you know, Ray Peat's work and the hormone itself, is that estrogen can be quote-unquote dominant in many ways. You know, it can actually be dominant, meaning you do have excess, right? I find that excess is usually because you can't detoxify it.
Yeah.
You're not producing excess. You're producing a little excess, but it's really excess because you can't detoxify it, because you're not eating the right proteins to help your liver detoxify it. Or you're not eating enough protein, or you're eating too much protein, right, which can actually create an estrogenic environment. So you're not supporting the body in the right way to let your body actually eliminate it. You can be progesterone deficient, which I find very rare in most women, unless they're in menopause. You could be vitamin A deficient, you know, because vitamin A is a precursor to progesterone. You know, there's many different ways. You can be hyperinsulinic. You know, so we have to really look at it and say, why is this person estrogen dominant? Most of the time, you know, if you study Ray Peat's work, he talks about this, and I've seen it over and over. You know, these women that take progesterone and it doesn't do anything is because what their body's showing them is they're not really estrogen dominant or progesterone deficient. They're actually not regulating their blood sugar, because every time insulin goes up, estrogen goes up. And because estrogen mimics the kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of stress response, and it stimulates a stress response. But it affects how we use glucose. It affects how we convert T3. But if we're creating excess because we're not regulating our blood sugar and we're increasing the conversion of, you know, testosterone to estrogen, you know, blah, 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 you know, and we can't detoxify it, it's going to recirculate. And that recirculation is where most people are having the issue. So from our standpoint, if we get people to regulate their blood sugar, and we give them metabolic foods, and we look at how much protein they're taking in and what's working for their body based on how they feel in their temp and pulse, their digestion, their sleep, etc., then we know we're getting the right amount so the body can actually detoxify estrogen. And there are certain supplements you can use to help the body and, you know, decrease that aromatization or detoxify estrogen, but 99% of the time, I'll be honest with you, food, in our opinion, does a lot better. And from our standpoint, the only thing we'll usually add in to help with this, with people that are having trouble detoxifying estrogen, would be a raw carrot. A raw carrot, you know, usually 2 times a day with a meal. Because, you know, you've probably heard of people eating, you know, using activated charcoal and things like that to detoxify their system. It's the same thing. It does the same thing. The fiber in carrots we can't break down. So the fiber actually, it's like a mop. It kind of mops up the excess estrogen, and we eliminate it. Doesn't give us any other value. You know, the beta-carotene in there, the vitamin A is not the same source as the animal source. So it's actually not that beneficial because too much plant source vitamin A is actually estrogenic. So that's why I usually recommend 1 to 2 a day. You know, if you're seeing your hands, or feature in yellow or orange, then you want to use bamboo shoots because they do the same thing. But it actually helps, along with regulating our blood sugar and everything we're doing, helping the body eliminate estrogen. Because like you said, besides being dominant, the worst thing is estrogen inhibits T4 to T3 conversion. So once again, food is the foundation for everything. If you're trying to regulate your hormones and how things are working, and you're not eating in a way so your body can detoxify estrogen, you can take all the progesterone you want and all the testosterone you want, but what's going to happen? You're still going to have the symptoms of estrogen dominance. You're still going to have erectile dysfunction issues. You're still going to have swelling. You're still going to have mood and irritability issues. You're still going to have menstrual cycle issues because of that estrogen that's not being detoxified.
And I know lots of people talk about leaky gut and fixing your leaky gut and all that. I think estrogen has a big part to play with all that too.
Well, yeah, it's recirculated, right? So, of course, it's going to have an effect. But, you know, if you're eating metabolic foods the body can actually break down, you're not going to ferment a lot of those carbohydrates, you know. And if you eat the right amount of protein, the right types of protein, they're not going to sit in your gut and just putrefy. You know, so leaky gut, in my opinion, is just a man-made, quote-unquote, dysfunction that people like to kind of red tag themselves with and use it as an excuse to why they have gut problems. And it's really just, you know, it's something you should just raise your hand and say, I created it, you know. And I hate to say this, but I always tell people that most of the problems they created, but how they're living, how they're eating, and how they're thinking, or the supplements they're taking. And it's really the truth. And if we just begin to do things a little bit differently, we can kind of change that. It's like this whole SIBO movement, right? You know, the small bacterial intestinal overgrowth that everyone's running around with. I call it self-induced bacterial overgrowth. And it's really just because of how people are eating. You know, the overabundance of vegetables, which we're not cows. We can't break down cellulose. So that excess intake, it causes fermentation, you know, and increases the overgrowth of bad bacteria. The over-ingestion of probiotics, you know, because people just don't want to eat in a right way to get their body to start producing better bacteria, you know. That's going to perpetuate that overgrowth, you know. Lactobacillus is a lactate-producing bacteria. You take too much of anything is not a good thing. You take too much of it, it's not a good thing, and you can create overgrowth. So from our standpoint, it's what people are doing. So if we can get people doing kind of the opposite and getting rid of all the interference instead of adding more labs and more supplements and more knowledge, we strip things away and say, let's reduce things that are causing inflammation. Let's get rid of all these supplements that are doing absolutely nothing and just give you the foundation first, which is food. Let's see how that works. And 99.9% of the time, it does work. Over time, of course.
Yeah. Interesting. And I have a question, and you talked about insulin earlier, and in my understanding, most people are not afraid of insulin, but are really holding back because of supposedly, well, not supposedly, but it can store fat because of too much glucose or too much fructose or whatever. But I know insulin is really essential, especially for athletes in certain time. How could you explain that?
Say that one more time, the last part.
I said, I mean, insulin is essential for athletes, but it seems with all the ketogenic diets and the low sugar and low carbs and all that, people are being afraid of insulin, but it's essential for so many things in an athlete's life.
Right.
Could you elaborate on that?
Oh, yeah. So why are people doing the ketogenic diet?
To lose weight.
Right. But do they care about their health? No. So we always say that most people today are losing weight and doing diets, whatever it's called. There's too many. I can't even keep counting anymore. At the expense of damaging their metabolism. Right? Yeah. If you look at the research, where did the ketogenic diet come from? Right. So most people are doing stuff, and they don't even know where it came from. They don't even truly understand. They go, I'm going to lose weight if I do this diet. Sign me up. Right? The problem is the ketogenic diet, I forget who created it. I actually draw a blank right now, but it was created for epileptic patients. He found that this diet actually helped to control epileptic seizures. So it's an epileptic diet. It's for people with epilepsy. It's not meant to be used for humans. It's like people in LA using this feeding tube diet. This is a popular diet in LA. People go on a feeding tube for a month or whatever to lose weight. And it's crazy. Our society is, I don't know how it is out there, but our society is absolutely nuts. They're moving further and further away from self. And we're getting lazier and lazier and lazier because we believe that if we are skinny, we are healthy. And personally, I don't agree with that. There's a lot of people I work with who are very skinny and they're very undernourished. And there's people that are very heavy, and to me, they're very undernourished. Right? So most people are dieting at the expense of damaging their metabolism. They want to lose weight. They want to get cut. But if you think about it, if you talk to any figure competitor, what are they going to tell you? They have no libido, right? They don't even have a cycle. They have no energy, right? So they're losing weight and they look good at the expense of damaging their metabolism. And most people might be listening saying, screw that, I feel great. Take your morning body temperature. The body doesn't lie. When you wake up in bed and you're laying down, take your temperature and pulse for 3 days. If you are ripped and you can bench this much weight or clean and jerk whatever this weight, and you feel great, you have energy, and you wake up with a really low temperature and a low pulse or a high pulse, you're damaging your metabolism. And we see this because we talk to these people all the time. I did paleo for 4 years, and it was great. I felt great. I looked great, and then I just crashed. And now I have no energy. I talked to a lady the other day. She hasn't driven her car in over 6 months because she can't even think right. This is an extreme case. But she went paleo. She did the ketogenic diet. She was addicted to exercise. And she did so much damage that now she just can't focus and think straight and make the right decisions. She doesn't feel safe driving. People doing so much damage to their body with these diets and just to look good, right? So from our standpoint, that's not nutrition based on human physiology. It's nutrition based on just wanting to be ripped, but you're basically inhibiting your immune system. You're down-regulating thyroid hormone production, and you're increasing an environment, in my opinion, if you do it for long periods of time, that literally down the line you're going to fall into those symptoms of the stages of disease, right? There's going to be, there's going to be things going on that you can feel in your body. You can't feel. There's going to be physiological process going on over time that you're going to be able to feel, and then there's going to be symptoms, and then there's going to be disease if you don't really actually listen to your body.
Yeah, it's a really short-term view because you're going to lose weight fast, but like after a couple of years, is it going to be the same?
Right, you're basically sacrificing your long-term health for short-term gains. Yeah. So if you look at how the body works, can you still be ripped? Can you still have energy? Can you still perform better if you eat sugar? 100%. And when I mean sugar, I mean carbohydrates. When I say carbohydrates, I mean fruits and roots. Because we don't need, from an energy standpoint, we really don't need grains. I'll come back to that, though. We don't need Pop-Tarts. We don't need donuts. We don't need bagels. And we don't need bread. Yeah. Right? Those aren't healthy. They're pure glucose. They're going to send you, straight up, straight down. That's what creates the weight gain. And people are moving too fast, right? If you come from ketogenic to paleo, and you just pound in the carbs, you're going to gain weight. You've downregulated the very receptor sites and hormones and enzymes in your system that help you process all these carbs. And you've trained your body not to break them down. So you're going to go slow introducing them again. And if you don't, you gain weight. That's your body telling you, hey, you're moving too fast. But with athletes, what I find is that it just depends when they train. But I find that usually mixing, like whether it's oats or, gluten-free breads or toast or grains with fruit and protein, so they're getting some fructose with all that glucose prior to their training sessions. And then in the app, because it's the more grainy glucose, those types of glycemic carbs are going to give, or I should say even like roots, that would be even a better choice. Mixing it with fruit, pre-training, you're going to get a longer energy reserve. You're going to have a lot more energy over time if you use those, but getting some of that fructose is important because it actually doesn't stimulate insulin. It actually inhibits insulin, and you're going to get that in fruit, so it's a great balance. So having fruits and roots, like maybe in the morning, I have eggs, potatoes, and fruit instead of just eggs and potatoes or just eggs and fruit or eggs and toast or eggs and oatmeal, whatever. And then they keep doing... Keep going. Say it again.
I was going to say... But I think for roots, you recommend cooking them in a certain way.
Just overcooking them so you can break them down, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not adding a stress to your body.
Exactly.
Digestion.
Exactly. Yeah. So having those things pre-workout and post-workout, having more of your fruit, right? So we can get sugar in the system, like Phil Ivey says. It's much more useful post-workout, so we can actually get that sugar into the system when it's needed most.
And I know lots of people that have followed your work over the years come to me and say, oh yeah, I'm sipping OJ and gelatin, but they don't really seem to get why or the percentage or the really what it does to your body. Could you explain that a bit? Because I know gelatin's a big source of protein for you. As well as OJ.
Yeah, we don't use just gelatin. A lot of people read our work and that's what they think. But, we're recommending, different types.
I know you're recommending broth and fish and all that.
Yeah.
But lots of people that say, oh yeah, I've read that. And now they're just sipping OJ and gelatin all day without really knowing why. But could you just explain a bit why is that? Why OJ? Why gelatin?
Yeah.
And then what else can they do instead of just sipping on that all day?
Well, the best thing they can do, and I agree with that, because I'm into that philosophy of people drinking their meals. I'd rather have people eat all day because you're going to get more sustained energy over time. Just think about it. If you ate a steak and a potato for lunch, or you had, eggs and toast and fruit, or you just had gelatin powder with some OJ, which one's going to satisfy you more? Of course, the food. The only time I usually recommend gelatin and OJ is like you literally just finished working out. That's when you should have your gelatin and OJ. Because you want to get that sugar into the system, and you want to get something that actually the body can absorb really quickly so we can get that sugar, right? And John Ivy, in his book Nutrient Timing, talks a lot about that because it increases nutrient delivery to the muscles, and it limits the immune...
cortisol.
Right, it blends cortisol and limits the immune system suppression, but also it allows us to regulate our blood sugar so we convert thyroid hormone. So now the stress of exercise is not as much of a stress, right?
Yeah. But why OJ, let's say, instead of grape juice or any other juice?
It's just a lot of the minerals and the sugars, a lot of different minerals like magnesium and things like that. The fructose and the glucose, we don't want to just get pure glucose because we're going to get that insulin spike. We're going to get that weight gain. The addition of fructose to glucose actually inhibits that insulin spike and regulates our blood sugar. It will
even post-workout.
Yeah, and will increase the oxidation of carbohydrates. So we want that. And or I should say it doesn't have an effect, as much effect on insulin as glucose does. So for me, post-workout, that's the best time to actually ingest it. And to get those sugars into the system is very important, and that magnesium is really important because, our cells use magnesium and glucose to produce energy, so you're basically using it to blunt that cortisol response, which is you're modulating the stress response, The reason we use gelatin over like a whey protein or any other protein out there is because it's a living, substance in a sense. Of course, if you just drank broth, it'd be better, but whey protein and all that. Yeah, it really doesn't mix well. But
there's an anti-inflammatory part to the gelatin.
Yeah, so it's a living protein in this sense. Whey is a byproduct of the milk industry. So if we have gelatin, we're getting something that's not inflammatory because it doesn't contain cysteine and tryptophan, where muscle meats do. So we're not going to increase the stress response. We're going to decrease it. It actually aids in blood sugar regulation. It increases gastric secretion, promoting digestion, reduces inflammation. And so it has a lot of healing effects besides just being a protein, and it contains a lot of glycine, which is very important for regulating, blood sugar and detoxification. So it's a food, but it's a very healing food and a very metabolic food, and that's why we use it instead of using whey, because whey is very inflammatory in our opinion. So if we reduce things that cause inflammation and we use things that don't cause inflammation and we use foods that actually reduce inflammation, we're creating a healing environment. So that's why we use the gelatin.
And I know in his book, Dr. Ivy talks about also adding leucine or some other types of BCAAs and vitamin C and vitamin E. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge supplement junkie. I think some athletes, like people that train a lot, I don't know what a lot is, but let's say they're training 5-6 days a week and they're training hard, they might need those BCAAs. I'm not sure about the added vitamin C. I'm not sure if I agree with that, because if they're drinking orange juice and eating fruit, they don't really need the added vitamin C. Yeah, which isn't really truly vitamin C, it's ascorbic acid, but
I think he's talking more about glucose. That's probably why he's adding.
Yeah, I mean it's not bad. I don't think it's needed for most of the average people. No, I don't think it's needed. But possibly athletes. Like if you're working with a pro hockey player, I mean they practice and play games and all the time. And they're constantly being broken down at many levels. So that addition can help, but it doesn't mean it's going to help with everyone.
And what's your take on exercise, on metabolism? Because I know exercise is still a stress to the body. It's a good stress, but still is a stress.
Right.
So how would you go with that?
The way I look at it is, I always tell people before I really tell you if it's a stress, take your pulse and temp. 30 to 45 minutes after working out seated, write it down on your log, and let's look at it. If your temperatures, usually what happens is people's temperature will be normal, but their pulse will be very high, like 90, 100, etc. So that tells us one of two things. That your exercise isn't working for you, which that can be some of the time. But also a lot of the times it tells us that how you're living and eating, more importantly eating, isn't supporting the energy that you're expending. So we really have to work on your nutrition, we really have to work on your pre-workout meals, and we really have to work on your post-workout meals to begin to regulate your adrenaline, your cortisol, etc., so you don't have that spike in your pulse post-workout. So we're using food to modulate your physiology to reduce the stress response from exercise. And then from there, we'll make the appropriate changes over time with the food, and then if that doesn't change, then we say, we need to look at your exercise and actually maybe modulate that a little bit. Change it.
Another big topic for athletes is probably the production of lactic acid compared to CO2. Can you explain a bit how cellular respiration can produce CO2 versus lactic acid and how that can influence performance for athletes?
So in normal cell health, right, our cells use oxygen, glucose, and thyroid hormone through the mitochondria to produce ATP, CO2, and water. That's energy. We want to produce that. And we need to produce that so it goes back into that feedback loop so we can produce more oxygen so we can actually keep that cycle going.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
And when our cells are not actually breathing properly, because it's called cellular respiration, whether we're not using glucose appropriately or thyroid hormone or whatever, oxygen, you're producing lactic acid, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to produce lactic acid. So you're either producing energy or producing lactic acid. And this is one reason why we actually, recommend people not eating a ton of lactate-producing foods, because we want to reduce that. It can be inflammatory when we take in too much because the body tries to use stored glycogen to convert it, and usually we don't have enough, so it can actually be a metabolic burden. So when we're producing lactic acid, it's basically the end product of inefficient oxidative metabolism, and it basically is telling us that we're promoting cellular hypoxia, right? We're not using enough oxygen. And we see this because usually what it is people have low temperature and pulse, and it's basically an energy toxin. We don't want to be there. Or what people say is you're producing too much free radicals, right?
Yeah.
So our cells are in an excitatory state. So now they're going to take up estrogen. They're going to take up water. And that damages the mitochondria. And that causes our cells to waste glucose. But when we're producing CO2, we're doing the opposite, right? We're not producing lactic acid. We're using O2 more efficiently, and there's more O2 available to the tissues, right, from an athletic perspective. We're reducing inflammation. We're reducing free radical production, right? We're regulating how our cells are taking water and estrogen because they're not, right? We're supporting the body. We're supporting the thyroid. We're supporting the use of glucose. It's very important for us to produce CO2 and not lactic acid.
And if you're in a hypometabolic state, you're producing lactic acid even at rest at some point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So for an athlete, performance-wise, that's terrible news.
Terrible news.
Yeah. So another hot topic these days is dairy. I mean, lots of people are afraid of dairy because of lots of different factors like antibiotics, pasteurization, the way animals are fed. But you have a little different view on dairy and how it can actually help you in some cases. Can you please elaborate a bit on that?
Well, the bottom line is, to even rewind it more, it depends on the person. Because everyone's afraid of dairy, but they should be afraid of themselves. Because dairy isn't to blame. Now, of course, if we're talking about a crappy type, conventional, hormonal, of course. But if we're talking about, I drank raw milk and, yada, yada, yada happened, it's not the milk, it's the body you're putting it into. It's your body that's the problem. And 99% of the times, people have been in such a hypometabolic state for so long, or they haven't drank dairy for so long, that they start to reduce the amount of lactate-producing bacteria in their gut, in the small intestine. So if they're not reducing lactase to break down lactose, if you drink milk, it's going to be inflammatory. So a lot of the times, and Ray P talks about this, and he believes that most people with a progesterone deficiency have this problem. That doesn't mean take Progest. That means if you get your body working better by regulating your blood sugar and cellular energy, now the system's going to turn on, and instead of the whole pregnenolone steal or whatever's happening there, or the estrogen dominance or whatever's going on, you're going to create a conversion of hormones that is actually exactly what's supposed to happen, right? And progesterone is going to be produced in a normal balance to estrogen. And that's what it's about. It's not about one or the other is better. It's a balance and ratio. So what we start producing is those enzymes. So I always tell people, if you've never drank a dairy, don't drink dairy, don't use it.
Yeah.
Eat food, begin to heal your body, use different, cheeses or things like that, and then over time, as you heal, you can add in dairy. But honestly, some people have done so much damage over time that they're never really able to add in the dairy. They didn't grow up drinking it, or they have a lot of damage. But for some people, it can be a very healing food because it's a complete macronutrient, and we're actually able to break it down. It provides us with a lot of kind of progesterone and thyroid-like qualities because of what's in it. But I'll be honest with you, I find a lot of people I work with in the beginning, when they're healing, they can't use it because we have to build the body up because their body actually can't break it down. It's like if you train your body to not drink water, which you can easily do.
Yeah. Most people
you can't
aren't thirsty anymore.
Yeah. So you can't go from that to just drinking half your body weight ounces a day. You have to slowly titrate yourself up. Same thing with dairy.
Cool. And so just to sum it up, if it's not raw and organic, you would not even go with dairy anyway, right?
Yeah, I just use what you can get. It's not going to make or break the healing process. I can guarantee you that. If you can't get dairy, don't use dairy. Just use other foods. Yeah. It's that. It means other foods that are that or more beneficial.
Well, it seems like the big thing for people trying to cut dairy is to go with substitute like almond milk or hemp milk or rice milk or whatever it is, which are probably not the best choice because of all the thickeners they put in it and all the crap they put so it tastes like something.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend? Is there anything good or not as bad that could be used instead of milk?
Yeah, it's not really a milk. Those foods don't have teats, and nuts and seeds are pretty much unsaturated fats, and which are very inhibitory to not only the thyroid but the gut and your pancreas and digestion. But most of them have carrageenan or guar gum, which we've written a blog on that and done a YouTube on that. It's very immunosuppressive, carcinogenic, and anti-thyroid. So a lot of people that are using them that are bloated or have gas, it's because of the thickeners.
Yeah.
So you can't just have, it's like eating hemp protein or pea protein. Those aren't proteins, It's like people thinking peanut butter is a protein. It's a fat. Nuts are fats.
Yeah.
So even though almond milk looks like milk, it's not the same thing physiologically. Yeah. And if you can't get milk, then don't drink milk. Because almond milk or anything else it's not going to benefit you. It's going to create more inflammation. If anything, use a little bit of coconut milk from a can that's guar gum or carrageenan free. But it's still not milk. Milk is milk.
Yeah. So coconut milk will be the best of the substitute, but we use it for different properties than milk.
Yeah, but it's a fat. You're going to use it as a fat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's mostly fat.
I know we're already past the hour, but I really want to have your view on PUFAs, because I know you're a big proponent of saturated fats and coconut oil. Could you please explain to our listeners why you think PUFAs are maybe not as essential as they say everywhere in public media?
Well, from our standpoint, the excess, I'll stress that word, intake of unsaturated fats, the excess intake of nuts and seeds, nut and seed oils, fatty fish, etc., fish oils, are anti-thyroid. It's that simple.
All right.
They affect how our cells are using glucose, how glucose is getting into the cells. They inhibit thyroid hormone production and pancreatic enzymes. So they affect how we break down our food. So they're really inflammatory in excess,
Yeah.
And from our standpoint, we want to actually increase the amount of saturated fat in relation to unsaturated fat, because from our standpoint, saturated fats or good saturated fats are actually anti-inflammatory. They help regulate blood sugar. They help reduce inflammation. So from our standpoint, unsaturated fats are actually anti-thyroid. So we don't recommend people use all these fish oils and nuts and seeds. We actually want to reduce them, because people come to us pounding them.
Yeah.
So if people come to us and they want to get better, what are you going to do? You do the opposite. Think about it. You can't do the same thing and get different results.
Yeah.
And then people say, well, I want to eat these. They work for me. Well, we're talking, so they're not working for you, but
Yeah, exactly.
Let's look at your temperatures. It's not working. Unsaturated fats are not bad for you. They're in nature for a reason. You produce them in your body for a reason, right?
Yeah.
The excess intake of them prevents your body from producing them. So it creates even more of an inflammatory environment. But it's the excess intake that's a problem. It's not like you don't need them. I mean, if you eat a piece of salmon here and there, you're going to die? No. But it's people always eating salmon and pounding fish oils, like Poliquin says, 8 grams, 5 grams, whatever, because they reduce inflammation, right? We don't agree with that. They're looking at it using binoculars. You're maybe reducing inflammation, local inflammation, at the expense of creating more inflammation at the cell level.
So it really is all the excess that causes the problem related with PUFAs.
Yes.
Okay, I know I've been holding you a bit longer than I should, but I have this last question I would really like to ask you, and it's about supplements. I know you guys are not using supplements as a staple of your diet, but you talk about niacinamide and calcium and salt to help your clients. Can you please elaborate on that?
Well, we recommend those things once they've created a physiological foundation, which is with food. The only reason, and we've done a YouTube on this, we'll use powdered eggshell calcium is when people have high parathyroid levels because they're not metabolizing calcium appropriately, and it usually means they're actually pulling calcium from the bones, so they have low calcium levels. So we'll use eggshell calcium really then and only then, or with someone that's has osteoporosis. Not that that's the reason they are, but it's a piece of the puzzle. Usually they have high cortisol levels, which is demineralizing bone. So it's really a blood sugar handling thing that's a problem. Well, I use niacinamide. We don't use supplements a lot, but we use them when needed. Niacinamide prevents the breakdown of tissue, reducing free fatty acids, which can inhibit cellular metabolism. So I'll use it with, people when they have like cachexia-like diseases, like a wasting disease, maybe like AIDS or cancer, or people that exercise extensively and they're having regular issues. They have to exercise because they're an athlete, and they're having trouble regulating their temperature and pulse post-workout, but they're eating a lot of food. We'll use it as a support mechanism to prevent that breakdown of tissue. But for me, therapeutically, most of the time, it's with people that have extreme weight loss or tissue loss, or maybe with my clients initially that they come to me and they're not eating a lot and they can't eat a lot because they don't have an appetite and they're really sick, extremely sick. So I'll use it to prevent tissue breakdown. But from my standpoint, food's better over time because if we regulate blood sugar, we're going to prevent tissue breakdown. So it's just a little bit of support when needed, but we don't use it for extensive periods of time.
All right.
For me, a supplement's a supplement. We get the results, we wean off it, and we should be good. If you're using a supplement for extended periods of time, it's not really doing its job.
Yeah, I agree with that. It should always be to fix something, then you should not need it anymore.
Right.
All right. Well, that was a great talk. I know I had so much more notes that things I wanted to talk about, but we're going to maybe do it another time.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for your time. It's always great to pick your brain and on physiology and nutrition and exercise. It opens a new perspective on how we see, especially nutrition with our clients. So where can people find out more about you and your work?
Yeah, you can check out our website at EastWestHealing.com. If you want to look at our social media, which we do a lot of, we have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. If you go to our website, EastWestHealing.com, and scroll to the bottom, you'll find all our social media handles. And then if you want to learn more about our consulting, of course, there's a nutritional coaching link you can check out. If you want to look at our ebooks, there's an ebook link. And if you want to look at our e-courses, there's an e-course link, and that's where you can find the Metabolic Blueprint and our other course, Fight Fatigue with Food. So you can find everything on our website.
All right. That's great. Hope everybody's going to go check it out. And thanks a lot for your time.
No problem, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, folks. So that's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and that it opened a whole new perspective on nutrition and the implication of sugar and metabolism on your health. Don't forget to check out everything that Josh has on his website, EastWestHealing.com. Great YouTube channel. He's really active on Instagram and Facebook, so don't hesitate to go and ask him questions. I also have 2 online courses you can check out, the Metabolic Blueprint course and the Fight Fatigue with Food program that you can both find on his website. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to go and give us a 5-star review on iTunes to help us get higher in the rankings. And come and give us your email on the trainrightpodcast.com to receive our newsletter, our latest information on the podcast and on the blog, and to be the first to know about upcoming live events in 2017. So have a great week and talk to you soon.